All right, and we are live. Valeria, darling, how are you? She's very happy to be right in the sunshine.
Very happy.
My doctor called me the other day and they said, Chris, you've got very low levels of vitamin D. We're going to send you. Oh, by the way, you need to pick up a prescription for me. Forgot to tell you over at CVS, or I'll go. I guess I'll go later today.
That's it.
Yeah, vitamin D. I completely forgot. But anyway,
Don't we have vitamin D?
Huh?
We don't have vitamin D?
We do, but I'm going to get like super concentrated vitamin D, like high dose. But anyway, I think the reason's because you're there and I'm here. You get all the sunshine, and it's just the back of my head gets the sun. So, Valeria, anything happening in our life? Anything interesting?
No.
Valeria mailed my crap today. Literally.
Chris, somebody might eating while they're watching your
Yes,
live
if you're eating, I apologize. Right, so I had to take a stool sample for this Viome thing, which I keep pushing on the show, even though they're not sponsoring the channel. I should call them and be like, I promote you guys every single day, but I don't know how good it is because I haven't got the results back and I haven't tried altering my diet. But I'm very excited about it, and so Valeria had to mail poo today, which is always quite amusing, and I always like to start the show talking about poo. So. I'm going to remember to do the intro today.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy? All right, guys, just so you know, I want to be clear. This is the least professional show on YouTube. I'm toxic. She's masculine. Together we are toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity. All right, so let's get this show started. Darling.
Yes.
We got some good stories today, by the way. Really good stories. We have somebody who compiles all my stories. And I deleted all of the stories she sent me except for, I think, one, which she's probably going to be mad at me about. And I put in all my own stories because there was so much news today. The stories that she had presented were actually awesome. They were all very interesting, but there was just too many good stories. And I had just found some stuff that I thought was a little bit more timely. So I threw that on there. Do you want to, do you have the list, right? You have the list of stories?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you read the first story for us, please?
Yeah. Iran claims John Kerry informed them of Israel military plans.
Right. So this is kind of an interesting story because I'm not sure if this violates anything or is quite as severe as they're making it. Basically, Republicans are saying that John Kerry needs a step down because he's like leaking military secrets of our allies to our political enemies, which, if what's happened is quite that severe, is as severe as all that, then certainly I think he needs to step down. Yeah. But what I think is going on is a little bit less sinister. I'm actually going to try to be a little bit balanced here in my reporting. I'm not going to say what John Kerry did was even remotely good. I think John Kerry is corrupt. I think he's a criminal, and I think that he needs to be investigated for all the stuff that went on with China, and because he was mixed up in dealing with China in the same way Biden was. People don't focus on John Kerry because John Kerry is a billionaire, and he doesn't need to have these kind of lucrative deals with China. But he was also dealing in a corrupt way, and I think possibly is an accomplice to what Joe Biden was doing. But I do think he needs to be investigated. The man's old, very old, probably not as senile as Joe Biden, but he seems a little bit rickety at this point as well. But here's the problem with John Kerry. John Kerry seems to have a problem recognizing who America's political allies are and who our political enemies are. He's like very chummy with the Chinese. He's very chummy with Iran. The government of Iran. And that's not to say that the people of China are bad. That's not to say the people of Iran are bad. There are many good Chinese people that are born and raised in China. There are many good Persians born and raised in Iran. We know people who are born and raised in Iran. I used to work for a Jewish guy that was born and raised in Iran. And he was a bit of an a-hole, but that he's not necessarily representative of the entire community. But it was funny. He was paying me $15 an hour to teach. I was tutoring people, school in Beverly Hills, and I was making more money doing graphic design at the time, but I couldn't take on new clients because I was spending too much time at this school. And so I said, look, you either have to pay me more or I have to move on. And I actually gave him a plan. This totally diverging from the news story, but I gave him a plan. I said, if you could raise the rates, because we had the cheapest tutoring of any kind of like any place for like Photoshop. I was teaching like Photoshop and different kinds of stuff in Premiere. And we were the cheapest place to go to in LA to learn this stuff. And of course, you could just go on YouTube, but some people like in-person tutoring.
And also, it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, right? And I said, look, increase the rates for everybody. And he goes, no. The reason that we keep them low is so that people come. And I said, look, if you have them raised by like, a few bucks an hour, you're still going to be the lowest rates in this city. But then you can pay me $25 an hour instead of 15, and I won't have to leave. And he said, no, I'm not going to give you a raise. And I said, all right, I got to quit then. And he was so shocked. And I'm like, wow, why are you shocked? I literally just told you I'm going to quit unless you give me a raise. And then you said, I can't give you a raise. Like, what do you think is going to happen? He's like, I thought you were lying.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not lying. And he's like, okay, well, all right. And he let me go. And yeah, it turned out to be actually really good, even though, yeah, I liked working there. Yeah, I met a lot of cool people. And anyway, so let's get back to this. But yeah, that doesn't mean the people of these places are particularly bad, but the governments, American government and these governments, we have a problem with each other, right? Because a lot of their policies are contrary to American interests and the interests of our allies. One of our strongest allies is Israel. So if Israel is conducting some kind of military campaign against Iran, American diplomats probably shouldn't be sharing that information with the Iranians. But it appears that's exactly what John Kerry has done. Now, okay, so this is why I said I don't think it's quite as bad as the Republicans are saying. It seems to me that what happened was that John Kerry was just in some kind of friendly conversation with the Iranians and happened to be talking about stuff that was happening internationally, sort of like an offhanded comment, something that maybe he actually thought they already knew and they didn't know, and they were taken by surprise by this. That's how I read it, because I actually read the New York Times article in which they were discussing this. So let me go ahead and read this Breitbart article because it's shorter, and it encapsulates what happened pretty well. White House refuses comment on tapes exposing John Kerry leaks to Iran about Israel. Now, so here's the thing: there's actual tapes that Iran has, that one of the officials in Iran has leaked, that actually has John Kerry's voice on it saying these things. So I think this is conclusive proof that this happened, although the tapes haven't been verified independently, as the journalists like to say, as far as I'm aware, by any organizations. But it's safe to say, I don't think that a diplomat or that an official in Iran would leak tapes that they said contain John Kerry's voice if they didn't actually contain John Kerry's voice. To me, that would be counterproductive to what they're doing. But let's see here. So the White House refused comment on reporting exposing climate czar John Kerry leaking information about Israel military operations to Iran. We're not going to comment on leaked tapes, Psaki replied shortly when asked about the report. The New York Times reported details of a leaked recording of Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, who told him that Kerry informed him that Israel had attacked Iranian interests in Syria at least 200 times. Psaki spoke about the leaked tapes in a White House press briefing, but refused to comment. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman, these names, Saeed Khatibzadeh, criticized the leaked recording as a crime. So here's the thing that's going on in Iran, right? We seem to think of Iran or Russia or China as a sort of monolithic political entity, right? The governments of these countries. We think of China as like everybody in China agrees with each other. They're all like, devout communists. They all support the political leader there and everything like that. We think of the same thing of Iran, and we think of the same thing of a lot of our enemies, North Korea and whatnot. Now, they do have a lot of cohesion in these nations because of the threat of violence. Like with any kind of authoritarian dictatorship, you will have political dissidents murdered. And so, yeah, that definitely keeps a lot of your political officials in line. People stand in line. They don't step out of line because they're afraid of getting killed. However, that doesn't mean that everybody agrees with them. There is some kind of, oftentimes there's a lot of political strife in these countries. We don't think about it because we think about America as a sort of nuanced place of various ideas. We don't think of these dictatorships that way. Sort of like the Democrats. You step out of line, you get canceled. That's why we call Democrats fascistic. But anyway, but apparently in Iran, it's far more volatile than we think. And the reason that this guy was leaking this tape, it actually wasn't anything to do with John Kerry. It was to do with the fact that he believes that the military essentially controls Iran. And he was presenting a lot of criticisms of the Iranian government. And so John Kerry just happened to be on one of these tapes, and this has a fairly significant impact on American politics if, in fact, John Kerry has been going around to our political enemies and just talking casually about the military operations of our political allies. So, again, I'm not sure if this was something that John Kerry was intentionally trying to betray Israel. But if he's so stupid that he thinks that Iran is our friend and that he can just like chit-chat with them casually about military operations of our allies, that he should not be in any position in government. He needs to get the hell out. I think that he has... So you got to remember, guys, John Kerry was in office when they negotiated the Iran deal, right? That was sort of one of his things. And you remember that we sent them, I think it was $1.7 billion because reasons. I don't know. That was crazy. John Kerry is one of the worst politicians we've ever had negotiating on behalf of the United States government because he negotiates friendly deals with our enemies, sweetheart deals with our enemies, because he's a moron. The guy is politically inept. He's one of these people that gets elected because he has these extreme views that some people kind of agree with and think that he's, that he's got the right position, but he has no idea what he's doing. It's this old saying that, like, okay, so there's this concept that if you have experience in a field, then that means that you're more valuable in that field, right? Naturally. But just because you are experienced, that doesn't mean you're good at something, right? Like, somebody who has a natural ability at basketball can actually be better than somebody else who practices, 5 hours a day at basketball, but has no natural ability, and that's true of all kinds of fields. And that's certainly true in politics. If you have a good instinct with politics and you're good at negotiation, somebody like Donald Trump, who doesn't have any experience in politics, was an amazing politician. He was an amazing leader. And somebody like John Kerry, who's basically spent his entire career in politics, absolutely dismal politician. But let's read the rest of this very short article here. Kerry currently serves as Biden's climate envoy at the State Department, a position created by the former Secretary of State who served under former Barack Obama. Created for the former Secretary of State. Yeah, so Kerry was the Secretary of State under Barack Obama, and that's when he negotiated this original Iran deal that he's trying. So John Kerry wants everybody to, like in the history books, he wants it to be written that he was this great, political power in America, that he did all this great stuff, and that this Iran deal was good. So I think he's desperate to salvage his legacy here. But his legacy is being destroyed by this leak, which, by the way, wasn't done by Republicans or anything like that. This was done by the Iranians themselves.
But isn't he himself denies that he did that?
Yeah, he denies that he said anything. But there's tapes, so I don't know why he would deny it. There's tapes. I mean, we haven't heard the tapes yet. They haven't been leaked to the public, but they have been leaked to the New York Times. So they're out there. They just have to be released. You know what pisses me off about that is, like, if this was a leak from, like, the Trump administration, the New York Times would have posted the audio, but the New York Times has not posted the audio, and I think it's because, it's John Kerry. Dan Sullivan called for Kerry to resign after reading the report on the Senate floor on Monday afternoon. Enough is enough, Sullivan said. The red line that was crossed, if this was true, revealing secret information to one of America's most sworn enemies with the blood of thousands of American military members on its hands, undermining the interest of our most important allies, the state of Israel. If this is true, John Kerry needs to go. He should resign, or he should get fired by the President of the United States. And yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm not 100% sure that what he did was intentional, but if it was not intentional, he's a moron. And if it was intentional, he's a traitor. So either way, it's bad. But anyway, that is that. Darling,
Yeah.
do you have anything to say about this? No, you don't. All right. Well, please go on to the next story.
Okay, that's gonna be difficult. Rose McGowan?
Rose McGowan. Yeah.
McGowan. The Democrat Party is a cult.
Yeah, so Rose McGowan, who is a Democrat, is now saying that the Democrat Party is a cult. And never mind the picture from the Associated Press here. That has nothing to do with it, obviously. Rose McGowan was raised in a cult, by the way. And basically, she's starting to recognize finally that the Democrat Party is a cult. Now, she also thinks that the Republican Party is a cult, and she thinks that we're all drinking the Kool-Aid of whatever political party we're in. But here's the thing: like, if you are a Democrat, you're naturally going to hate Republicans. You're naturally going to think Republicans are brainwashed and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be very difficult for you to recognize the problems with your own party, the problems with the Democrat Party. So the fact that she is a Democrat, lifelong Democrat, and she is now recognizing that the Democrats are all, she thinks, also in a cult. I think that's very powerful, despite the fact that, of course, she's wrong about Republicans. Problem with Democrats is a lot of times is they get fed a lot of misinformation about Republicans. So I'd actually love to sit down with Rose McGowan for my show, or even just privately, and sort of discuss the misperceptions that she might have about Republicans. Like, there's a lot of people who are prone to believing conspiracy theories. I did a video on a guy who had been like a Democrat, then he'd gone and he'd watched a bunch of YouTube videos from the far right, you might call it, and he became this sort of far right guy. Elijah says he didn't get counted in the census. Well, you just had to go online and click the thing. What the heck's wrong with you? Let's see here. So, what the heck was I talking about? The cult stuff, the Democrats, the Republicans. I don't remember. I got lost from that text. I've been waiting for him to text back. He finally texts back, and it's like, it's not helpful to my story. But what was I saying? You don't remember? See, this is the problem with you not listening to me. You got to listen. You got to listen better.
I'm listening.
Okay. Well, anyway. So the point is, she's now recognizing that the Democrats. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would like to sit down with her and talk to her about it, because I think Democrats get fed all this misinformation, like Republicans are racist and all this kind of stuff. And they have this perception of conservatives like, oh, you guys just listen to Trump, or you just listen to, some other like racists, and you believe what they say, and you don't think for yourselves, and you don't consider that black people are human, and you don't consider like that the environment needs to be saved and all this kind of stuff, and you're just in your conservative cult, and you believe this stuff. But in reality, all the Republicans that I know are super skeptical of the stuff that politicians are saying, even stuff that's being said by Republican politicians. That's why you'll get a lot of criticism of Republican politicians by Republican voters. You see that all the time. And you do find a lot of different positions amongst people who vote Republican. Libertarians have certain positions. Republicans have certain positions. We disagree about certain things, but we have some fundamental perceptions that are that we build our political philosophy around, which is why we tend to have a pretty unified political philosophy, even if on certain issues we differ slightly a little bit. But Democrats are a coalition of special interests, right? So you get the environmentalists, you get the the LGBT folks, you get the people who want to support Black Lives Matter, and that kind of stuff. You have the feminists, and these different, you have the immigration folks. All these different groups that have these special interests, they don't necessarily agree with one another on, like, do you think that that if you go and you talk to a black activist who's all for the rights of black people and promoting blackness and all that kind of stuff, if you talk to them about the LGBT community or the environment, you think they're going to care? Probably not. Well, yes, but the only reason they care is because that's part of the Democrat platform. So you want to vote for a Democrat and you want to kind of agree with the Democrat because that's what the Democrat leadership is telling you, but they don't actually care about that stuff. Not really. They just say they do because, it's part of the Democrat position. And sometimes these positions go against each other's interests. Like, for instance, LGBT community supports trans rights. Yeah. Feminists support the rights of women. So you got all these feminists who have been for decades trying to get women, like women's sports, to be more accepted in American society, so that women can participate in sports in school, participate in sports on a professional level, and all that kind of stuff. And now you got the trans people saying, "Oh, we're going to put guys in with the women in these women's sports," and all the feminists are going, wait, hold on a second. And so this happens a lot in the Democrat Party, where you get these conflicting ideas, but then you get people like Nancy Pelosi who are saying, this is what the truth is. And they're just lying to people blatantly. Get Rachel Maddow, you get the people on CNN, Don Lemon, just blatantly lying to everybody about Trump, about Republicans, about this stuff. And then they all think, okay, maybe we disagree with each other a little bit on these things because, naturally. But the Republicans are so evil that we have to hate them. And so to me, it's like, if you're in a cult, what do cults do? Cults brainwash you. And so they're being brainwashed constantly. I'm actually doing a video on this because there's a new hashtag called BlueAnon on Twitter that's been going about on Twitter. BlueAnon. BlueAnon is our answer to QAnon. They always say, like, Republicans are QAnon conspiracy theorists. Well, we've developed our own term now, BlueAnon conspiracy theories, right? And the big difference between the conservative QAnon concept and the BlueAnon concept of the left is that QAnon is believed, like the craziest QAnon stuff, is believed by a very small fringe group of conservatives. Most conservatives don't believe most of the QAnon stuff. Most conservatives aren't even aware of most of the QAnon stuff. But the Democrat BlueAnon conspiracy stuff, that's like mainstream Democrat thought, like the idea of the Russian collusion stuff. That was a hoax. That was false. That was fake news. That was a conspiracy theory. That was on CNN every night. That was on MSNBC every night. That's mainstream Democrat views is conspiracy theories, right?
Some of their views that they did it for ratings. They admitted that.
I'm not talking about the reporters. I'm talking about the voters. The voters listen to the CNN political pundits. They listen to the reporters, the so-called journalists on that network, and they believe what they tell them. Nancy Pelosi spreads this disinformation because it helps her politically. CNN spreads the disinformation because it helps their ratings. It also helps their political party that they're part of. And then the unfortunate victims are the voters, the Democrat voters who believe this nonsense. And, they're just so, Kavanaugh was a sexual predator at 13 because this girl he pushed on a bed once thought she was going to be raped, even though he doesn't even remember what the hell she's talking about from when he was 13. And of course, she wasn't actually raped, which is the even bigger, which I always thought was so weird, is like they're pushing this theory that some boy pushed a girl onto a bed and she was scared and he ran off. And 40 years later, he can't be a Supreme Court justice because she had this weird memory. Such a bizarre thing. But anyway, so there's all this conspiracy theory stuff coming out of the left, but it's coming out of the mainstream left, and it's being pumped into the brains of these Democrat voters every single night, every single day, for years. And but what Rose McGowan thinks is that this happens on the right as well, and she's just wrong. Certainly conservatives do watch the news, and they do listen to certain political pundits, and people do watch my show. But we always tell everybody, go listen to the other side. Go listen to other people. Go think for yourself about this sort of thing. Go have discussions. Conservatives always want to talk about this stuff. Leftists don't. And I think that that's really telling about who wants to brainwash the people that listen to them, and who wants the people that listen to them to think for themselves. Which side is a cult and which side isn't. All right, well, let's listen to exactly what Rose McGowan did say here, because I think it's actually quite compelling. Enough of my ranting.
Well, as some of you know, as some of you don't know, if you've heard my name or read anything on me in the media, I grew up in a cult, and it was a very famous cult called Children of God, and it gave me a superpower. It gave me the ability to see the control and the propaganda machine, especially in the U.S., for what it is and how it harms people, and how the left can harm people just as much as the right if they go very, very deep into it and ignore all other aspects of kind of reality in a way, and that you're serving a master that might not be serving you. And I always say I come in peace. I am not here to make people feel bad about their political choices, but I am here to say that you might be in a cult too if you don't know the signs. And I do believe Democrats most especially are in a deep cult that they really don't and know about and aren't really aware of. And I leave the Republicans alone more because I do respect people more that are like, this is what we are, this is what we're about, this is what we're against. Whereas I find that the Democrats are really pretty much almost against all the same things. They're against changing the world for the better, and they're for keeping a system in place that is for so few people and benefits so few, but they masquerade as the helpers. We would do this. The world would be perfect if only those Republicans would get out of the way. Well, okay, you've got control. So now what? What are you going to do to make the world better?
So I feel like she's got half of the puzzle put together now, right? She's finally figured out that the Democrats are lying to their public about what they're trying to do.
She's weird. I don't really like.
Oh, I think she's crazy. Yeah, I do think she's crazy. But maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe she's just... See, I think it's very difficult.
She said she was raised in a cult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But here's the thing. Here's where I have sympathy with her. I think it's very difficult if you've been brainwashed by the Democrats your whole life to view Republicans in a positive way. I just think it's very, very difficult. It's sort of like, I don't know. I can't think of an analogy right now.
I don't know. She's weird. I don't really. She looks evil to me.
Yeah, well, I think she's a little bit messed up, right? I think she's had a lot of trauma in her life, and she's got like some kind of issues. But I'm a very optimistic person, and I see that she has learned that the Democrats are lying, right? She doesn't trust the Democrats. But I think the reason she doesn't trust Republicans is because she's been told her whole life that Republicans are lying to her. So if Republicans say, well, we want to build a wall to protect Americans from drug dealers and terrorists and stuff like that, but then the Democrats say, oh, no. Republicans are lying to you. What they really want is to stop Mexicans from coming into America because they're racist and they hate Mexicans. And Rose McGowan goes, I see. Okay. And then every time Republicans say something, we want to pass this legislation because of X reason, or we want to stop people from doing this because of X. And then the Democrats say, no. They're lying to you. They're lying to you. Their real thinking is that they're bigots. They hate women. They hate progress. See, you notice that she said there that Democrats will be just like Republicans. They say they want progress, but they really don't. Republicans, she just assumes Republicans tell you what they really think.
They don't. Those are an adult people. Adult, not like 10 years old, not 7 years old. And you believe whatever your party, your media tells you to believe. Like, can you just think for yourself for a second and don't believe everything you hear?
Well, I think it's very hard if you've grown up listening to the same lies for many years. And the fact that she recognized that Republicans do, in fact, tell people what they think, and she accepts that, I think that that's a great first step in recognizing that Republicans aren't actually as evil as the Democrats say that they are. And so I think she's a little bit more, but she's still saying that Republicans are in a cult and the Republicans don't want progress. That's absolutely not true. Republicans have never, ever said, as long as I've been alive, I've never heard any Republican say that we don't want progress. That's a bizarre concept. Of course we want progress.
She mean that Democrats are very progressive, and Republicans are like old-fashioned, who wants those traditional values and, you know...
Right, but the problem is the Republicans will say, we want to conserve traditional values. We're conservatives. And Democrats will say, well, what they really mean by that is that...
Why aren't we progressive? There's going to be transgender Republican, whatever, as a California governor, and we are not progressive?
Exactly, yeah. Well, the Democrats will say...
That's a hell of a progress right here.
The Democrats will say that the reason that Republicans want to maintain traditional values is they want to bring back slavery, and they want to bring back Jim Crow laws, and back in the old days when they were racist.
Do you know who wants to bring back slavery? Democrats with their illegal immigrants who are going to work here for $5 an hour.
True. All right, darling. So this is the story of Rose McGowan's awakening. She's not fully there, but I am kind of impressed that somebody from a cult finally recognizes that the Democrats are in a cult. All right, shall we move on to the next story?
Yeah. Elizabeth Warren speaks out against her harsh treatment of January 6 protesters.
Yeah, can you believe that? So now we've got two Democrats sitting here starting to recognize...
3 months later. Wow, thank you.
Well, we get two Democrats here. We got Rose McGowan and now we got Elizabeth Warren, and both of them are recognizing that the Democrats are flippin' evil. In this particular case, it's not about the cult, the left-wing cult, but it's about the left using the judicial system to punish their political enemies and to send a message and to threaten conservatives, right? If you protest, if you do something we don't like, we are going to put you in prison. This is what they do in third world dictatorships. This is what they do in fascist countries. If you disagree with a fascist dictator politically, he will put you in prison. This is what Putin does. This is what they do in China. This is what they do in North Korea.
Prison is for that pocket opposition. They will just kill you.
Yeah. But
they won't put you in prison.
Well, sometimes they put you in prison. I mean, look at the guy that's in prison now on the hunger strike.
He is not a real opposition.
All right, Valeria, you're ruining my analogy here. I'm trying to say Democrats are bad. Just go with it. Gosh, okay. Anyway, point is, third world dictatorships use their political power and the judicial system to attack their political enemies. and so do the Democrats. You know who doesn't do that? Good, patriotic Americans, Republicans. We don't punish our political enemies using the judicial system. They attacked Dinesh D'Souza. I've talked to you about that many times. Dinesh D'Souza was inappropriately put into through the prison system because he created a documentary that was critical of Barack Obama. It's unbelievable, unbelievably weaponized use of the judicial system by a political party. And that's what they're doing now with the January 6 protests. And finally, Elizabeth Warren sees it. She sees this. Capitol riot defendants win unlikely Democrat champions as they face harsh detainment. So Elizabeth Warren fled the Capitol on January 6th from a mob she later called domestic terrorists. But now she and other Senate Democrat leaders are standing up for their attackers' rights as criminal defendants. Attackers. Yeah, they attacked them. Come on. But this is Politico. You know, the reason I picked the Politico article is because I'm like, well, if Politico is covering it, then it's going to be much more convincing to a Democrat who might be watching this. Most of the 300 plus people charged with participating in the January 6th Capitol riot have been released while they await trial, but dozens of those deemed to be dangerous, flight risks or high risk of obstructing justice, I don't know how they would obstruct justice. They're just like average Americans. None of them are like powerful people. They're all just regular folks. But anyway, whatever. Were ordered held without bond. D.C. Jail officers later determined that all Capitol detainees would be placed in so-called restrictive housing, a move billed as necessary to keep the defendants safe, as well as guards and other inmates. I mean, to some degree, that's kind of true, because the problem is these people are not criminals. They walked through the Capitol casually, believing that they were allowed to do so because Capitol Police ushered them in.
There at all. Inside, you weren't supposed to go there. They broke the law.
Said who?
They broke the law.
How? But what do you mean we're not allowed to go into the Capitol building?
Like breaking in the Capitol building?
Yeah, but most of the people that went in... Hold on, don't interrupt me. Most of the people who walked in were ushered in by the police.
Chris, it was a trap started by Antifa who started breaking into the Capitol. But darling,
yes, a few people broke windows and snuck in that way. But the vast majority of people walking through the Capitol just walked in through the doors.
And it was a trap, and it's a very tragic moment.
Yeah, but there was no indication that they were not allowed in the Capitol. Because I'm not aware of whether or not...
Still illegal. That's why they're charged like...
They're saying that it was illegal, but aren't people allowed through the Capitol in like tours and stuff like that? I think they are. I mean, it's called the public house, right, or something like that. I think I've never been through the Capitol myself, but I think you're allowed to go into the Capitol. I think it's publicly accessible. So I think that when the people were protesting and they were led into the Capitol by Capitol Police, I don't think they thought they were trespassing.
It's accessible, but I don't think you can have an access to the actual room when all the congressmen were evacuated.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, but I don't think they were aware of that, because when the police officer came in, he didn't yell, "You guys are not allowed to be in here, you're trespassing." He said, "Could you guys be respectful of this place?" You saw that video.
Well, I saw the video how policemen tried to like stop them, but one policeman and like 50 people
No, it wasn't one policeman and 50 people. It was one policeman and like 3 guys that were in there. Remember the guy with like the Chewbacca outfit or whatever?
You're talking about this one. I'm talking about your parody with this black...
No. But you're specifically... Oh, my God. Okay, talking to you is so difficult sometimes. Why are you being so argumentative today? Look, when they were in the actual part where part of the Capitol building where you 2 votes and stuff like that, nobody said that you're trespassing. In fact, I never heard anybody say you guys are trespassing at all. There was no indication whatsoever to anyone.
If you weren't warned about this, it doesn't save you from...
Sure, there is a concept in American law which is that ignorance does not justify breaking the law. However,
that's exactly what I wanted to say, but I know that in Russian I don't know the English.
But that's baloney. In this particular case, that is nonsense. If you genuinely think that you are following the law and technically you're breaking the law, the justice system, they have something called discretion, right? Where they can determine what your intention was, and if you genuinely did something wrong.
I understand journalists' intention to be inside the Capitol.
Okay, just stop talking. Just stop talking. Everything you're saying is wrong right now, okay? Yes.
I have a right to have my own opinion.
Yeah, but your opinion's wrong.
Darling, if I'm not agree with you 100%, it doesn't mean that I'm wrong.
Look. These folks...
Do you want to have a dialogue?
These folks on January 6th did nothing wrong, okay? Even the trespassing wasn't something wrong, because I don't believe that they understood that they were trespassing. Now, you can say that not knowing the law, but it's a ridiculous argument in this case. Because it's like saying that as if the U.S.
Chris, if you pass on a red light, you will get stopped by the policeman, and you will say, "I didn't know the rules." It doesn't mean that
Valeria,
you don't have to pay a ticket for
talking.
it.
Just stop talking. You're so annoying right now. Okay, look. If the U.S. Congress secretly passes a law in the middle of the night that it's illegal to, do something perfectly normal like eat chicken, right? And then then police start rounding up people for eating chicken that didn't know they weren't supposed to. Is that just? Is that justice? No, that's ridiculous, okay? There are certain instances in which ignorance is a valid excuse. I don't care if that's the rule, is like ignorance is not an excuse. In certain instances, it's a perfectly valid excuse. That's why we have discretion with the judiciary. And this idea that these people are being arrested and being tried for trespassing when they were let in by police...
I saw they letting them in.
Yeah.
But not everywhere. Do you remember that girl got shot?
Yeah.
Jumped into the...
Yeah,
through
there
the
were
window?
certain instances.
They didn't let them in.
There are certain instances, but a lot of the people aren't being prosecuted for breaking windows and stuff. A lot of the people are being prosecuted for just walking through the Capitol.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank God. Thank God. All right. Let's see here. Most of the 300 people... Larry, stop throwing stuff at me. Most of the 300 plus people charged with participating in the January 6th riot have been released while they wait trial. Okay, blah, 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 whatever. We read that bit. Okay. So, but they are keeping certain people confined. But they are trying so they're saying that they're being confined for their own protection, which I agree with to some degree. If you are going to keep these people confined, I think you do have to keep them away from the general population of the prison. Because these people are regular folks. They're not hardened criminals. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to put regular, everyday folks, from the Midwest, like moms and soccer moms and stuff like that, put them in prison, you got to protect them from the general population, first of all. I guess secondly. But firstly, even more importantly, you shouldn't have them locked up at all anyway. This whole idea that we got to lock these people up because they were part of the Proud Boys or something like that. I mean, the problem is that the Democrats have so demonized a lot of these people, like the Proud Boys. They're like, oh, these people are domestic terrorists. No, they're not. What domestic terrorist acts have been committed by the Proud Boys? They broke a window at the Capitol building. Oh, my gosh. They broke a window. It's terrifying. Let's see here. But that means 23-hour-a-day isolation for the accused even before the trials begin. And isolation is a form of torture. Solitary confinement is considered a form of torture to some degree, anyway. And such treatment does not sit well with Warren and the Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin, two of the chamber's fiercest critics of solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is a form of punishment that is cruel and psychologically damaging, Warren said in an interview. So I think to some degree she's just trying to say consistent on her position of solitary confinement. I think solitary confinement is necessary sometimes dealing with prisoners and stuff like that. But dealing with somebody who's awaiting trial, who's being tried for trespassing, I don't even know why they're even locked up. Let them go. Let them come back and come to their trial. And of course, if they miss their trial date, they are in contempt of court. But all right, let's see here. And then she says, and we're talking about people who haven't been convicted of anything yet. Exactly right. Exactly right. So I do think that it's possible that these people will be able to sue the court system, and they could potentially win. The Massachusetts Democrat, a member of the Senate Majority, a member of Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's leadership team, said that while some limited use of solitary confinement is justified, uses of solitary confinement are justified, she worried the law enforcement officials are employing it to punish the January 6th defendants. You think? My God. I can't believe Elizabeth Warren actually says this out loud. That's impressive. That is impressive. Well done, Elizabeth Warren. Now, one thing about Elizabeth Warren, she used to actually be a conservative. She used to be very... She has written books that are about sort of like economically conservative ideas that were pretty spot on back in the day. But then she switched to being a Democrat and she like lost her mind. I don't know why she switched to being a Democrat. Obviously, Democrats are criminals, so I don't trust anything.
The question is when she switched, because if it was like she's old, she's pretty old. If it was like 30 years old, then Democrats were like okay back then. But not now.
But she still is a strong Democrat, and she still believes in this idea of, taking from businesses and giving it to government.
You don't want to accept that you made a mistake.
Well, I want to accept that she's totally redeemed herself. No, I don't know about totally, but to some degree, she's redeeming herself here because she's saying stuff that is totally valid. I mean, I was just shocked that she's recognizing that that these people are being punished for political reasons. I can't believe she's saying this out loud. It's almost like she hasn't been let in on the whole Democrat scheme of, let's commit all these, these ethics violations and criminal acts essentially, and try to get away with it. It's like she was like, she didn't get the memo. It's like, hey, keep your mouth shut. We're trying to commit crimes here and get away with it. Let's see here. She's worried that law enforcement officials are deploying it to punish the January 6th defendants or to break them so that they will cooperate. Yeah, no kidding. Of course that's what's going on. Her sentiments are shared by Durbin, who also chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee, and expressed surprise that all the detained January 6th defendants are being kept in so-called restrictive housing, while their defense of accused rioters, while their defense of accused rioters' rights as criminal defendants. Good God, who wrote this? Let me see here. Kyle Cheney. Kyle Cheney, you are a shit writer. Sorry, that I shouldn't use that word, but I don't even understand this sentence. Sorry, I got to go down here. Okay. While their defense of accused rioters' rights as criminal defendants is unlikely to change with Justice Department's handling of those cases, good God, it's a notable case of prominent progressives using their political clout to amplify their criminal justice reform calls, even on behalf of Donald Trump supporters this is kind of what I was saying, is that Elizabeth Warren has a problem with solitary confinement generally, and so she's just using this as a way of getting support for that position. Durbin, who has long sought to eradicate solitary confinement, told Politico that such conditions should be very rare exceptions for accused insurrectionists or any other prisoners. You know what they really need to, like, I'm not going to read this whole article, but you know what they really need to do? They really need to start to recognize that not just that they're being unfairly treated as prisoners, but that they're being unfairly treated as suspects in these crimes. Mm-hmm. And it's basically what I was telling you. Like, a lot of these people were just regular people strolling through the Capitol. They didn't even realize that they were trespassing. So this idea that because how often do Black Lives Matter protesters trespass? How often do Black Lives Matter protesters burn down buildings? I mean, they've been
building like police stations.
Police stations. How often do Black Lives Matter murder people? I mean, at the end of the day, the Black Lives Matter protesters were treated so damn well over the past year in 2020. They were basically treated like heroes. And then the Republicans go in and they walk through the Capitol building, basically just, not really doing anything, much destructive at all. I mean, a few of them broke a couple of things, but for the most part, they were genuinely peacefully protesting. They were doing what the Democrats were pretending the rioters were doing for the Black Lives Matter stuff. They were actually doing that. They were actually peacefully protesting. And I think, in my mind, they thought, well, if what we are doing is trespassing, the way that the government treats protesters now is so nice that even if what we're doing is a slight violation of the law or something like that, they're going to just ignore it, because they ignore, violations of the law when protesters do it. You remember the mask thing? Like, oh, if you're caught without a mask outside, you're going to get a $500 fine. That was in L.A. And then with the Black Lives Matter protests, they're like, but if you're a Black Lives Matter protester, you can totally get away with not wearing a mask and it's fine. Like, there was all these exceptions for protests, right? They're like, okay, so even if we are trespassing, probably, I imagine people walking to the Capitol thought they will probably dismiss it because we're protesting, right? Protesting nullifies certain laws, apparently. But it doesn't work for Republicans. It only works for Democrats. There's two sets of laws in America, one for Democrats, one for Republicans. Republicans will get prosecuted for any slight violation of the law. Even if they didn't commit a violation of the law, they'll be persecuted and they'll be accused of violating the law and maybe even prosecuted for it, even if they didn't commit a crime. Democrats can commit as many crimes as they want, get away scot-free. Look at Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden's got away with tons of stuff. The rioters get away with tons of stuff. Why? Because they're Democrats. All right, I'm done being pissed off about this story and being pissed off at my wife. We'll make up at the end of the show. All right, darling, could you do me a favor?
Yes.
Despite being totally wrong, could you read the next headline, please?
Biden says he can't talk to reporters or he will be in trouble.
Yeah, I asked Valeria if she'd seen this before the show, and she was like. She had seen it, which I was actually surprised by, because I didn't realize that you paid attention to the news as much as I did. But I guess, what were you doing today? You had to go do some errands.
I had too many stuff to do today.
So apparently she was sitting around watching the news, and she caught it. But this is really fascinating, because we've been talking about for a while now, both like on our show, as well as other conservative show, people have talked about this. Joe Biden doesn't really run his political party. He doesn't really run the White House. He doesn't really make the rules as president. He is a puppet for other people who control him. Okay. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about this on the show for a long time. But occasionally he expresses, obviously the White House, obviously Biden is going to say this is not true. No, Biden's his own man. Biden makes his own decisions. Biden's awesome, blah, 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 blah. But occasionally Biden lets slip a little bit of a hint behind the curtain, right? And today he did just that. He cuts off press questions saying, I'm really going to be in trouble if I keep answering questions. So apparently he's not allowed to, okay? Apparently he's not allowed to answer questions from the press.
I think it's one of those moments when first he said, you remember when he said, I need to get off this Zoom call because my wife need the computer or something in conference room?
Gosh, yeah, you remember that when he was campaigning?
Yes, I mean, it's kind of like reminds me of the same thing. Like,
he said stuff like this many times, and of course he doesn't take questions from the press very often, and he's been criticized for that quite a lot. Like, Donald Trump basically stopped next to the press corps literally like every time he left the White House, or every time he got back off the helicopter, he'd be like, all right, who wants questions? You. You're fake news. I'll take your question anyway. What do you got? I mean, Trump was awesome. Trump would tweet out his ideas, everything that he was thinking about. We knew exactly what Trump was thinking about every single day of the presidency. You had sort of unprecedented transparency in the Trump administration, and you have unprecedented opacity in the Biden administration. The Biden administration is completely like shut off from the rest of the world. You do not know what's going on in the Biden administration because it's a very sort of controlled information stream through Jen Psaki. You really don't hear anything directly from Biden. Number one, I don't think he even knows what's going on. And two, he's just given these prepared statements all the time, and that's it. And he's not really allowed to answer questions. And that's made clear by what he says here. Let's listen to this.
President Harris, India needs AstraZeneca. Will you make it faster for them to get the vaccine? The vaccines we will get soon. India, they're suffering at this moment.
What do you say to the folks in India?
Look,
I'm sorry. This is the last question I'll take, and I'm really going to be in trouble. With regard to India, I spoke at length.
Yeah, so he says this is the last question I'm going to take because I'm really going to get in trouble. And look, I could read articles about this and get other people's perspectives, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to this: who's Biden going to get in trouble with?
I told you, his wife. They're probably late for dinner or something.
No, I don't think that it is his wife. I think it is some kind of politically powerful people that work with Joe Biden and basically tell him what he's allowed to do and what he's not allowed to do.
It's a kind of tricky thing because he may be trying to be like funny, but at the same time, it doesn't sound right for president to say, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think he is absolutely trying to be funny.
Bad idea.
But the thing is, he's the president of the United States of America. Like, it's only funny if we're let in on to the joke of who is supposedly in control of him. If he is talking about his wife, then it's a funny, amusing joke, and it's fine. But the thing is, I don't think that's what he was thinking when he said it. I think he was thinking of the people who work with him that basically like tell him what he's allowed to say and what he isn't allowed to say.
I think next time he should say, it's the last question I'm going to take. It's the first and last unscripted question that I have to take, or I'm going to get in trouble or something like this, because all of the questions like scripted.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's like a question that...
Yeah, it's basically like everything he says is scripted. And every question that he gets from the press is, I think that they have already looked at these questions and they have authorized them or not, right? Biden picks certain people. We saw in his first press conference as president that he had a list of reporters and he had them numbered which ones he was supposed to ask in which order. And he knew it was going to be asked and he knew how to respond. In fact, he read some of his responses. He's the president. Can't you just like think of your response and like express your ideas? I do it every day on the show. Yes, I mess up a lot. I can't think of statistics. I can't think of names sometimes. Sometimes I get them spot on. Sometimes I get things a little bit off. But at the end of the day, I'm expressing to you my views as I think of them in real time. And I'm not the president of the United States. I'm just some random dude in his house with his wife, with a camera and a microphone and a cat, who's sleeping nicely, by the way. And this is so unscripted. See, I think that Joe Biden should do what we do one day and just get into a fight with his wife on live television.
No, the fight will be off the television.
What?
The fight will be after live.
Oh, our fight? Oh, no, we had a fight in front of everyone.
Okay.
What are you talking about? Well, I'm sure I'll yell at you when we're done with this show. What are you doing disagreeing with me? But
I thought that's the point of having like a dialogue and conversation and expressing my own opinion. If I have to agree with you on every subject, just tell me that.
No, absolutely. I actually think that it's really good that you disagree with me a little bit on certain things, and we can discuss that on the show. Just not when you're super wrong about something. She's going to kill me after the show, guys. Help. All right. Yeah. Joe Biden is not in control of the White House. And look, I've been trying to figure out who is for like a month now, or more than that. I've been doing research consistently on it. I've been, I don't do it every single day, all day or anything like that. But occasionally I'll go look into it and I'll try to figure it out. I'm trying to write a story on this, but it's so hard to dissect everybody who works at the White House and try to come up with a conclusive answer as to who actually is controlling Joe Biden. Because I think that it's a sort of cabal of interests. I think that there are several people who basically control Joe Biden. A lot of people think that it all kind of flows to Barack Obama. I don't know if that's true or not. You can say in the comments whether you agree with that. Yeah, this is actually a good question for you guys for the comment section. At the end of the show, why don't you let us know? And you don't have to put money in for the super chat. Just write at toxic masculinity. I think there's an underscore there, right? Something like that. And it should pop up in orange. You can see what other people are doing, and let us know who you think is in control of the White House. A lot of people think it's Barack Obama. I'm not 100% sure that's true. I'm not sure that's true. I think there's a variety of people. Obama might be part of that group. I don't know. But there are people controlling the country from behind the scenes, and it's clearly not Biden. And I think he slipped up there making that joke. I think that there's a little bit more of just a kernel of truth in that joke than what people might suspect.
Now he's really going to get in trouble.
Why?
For saying that.
Me?
Joe Biden.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. I'll be in trouble if I say something. Yeah, he's gonna get off the mic and people are gonna be like, "Why the hell did you say that?" Yeah, exactly. Which is what I'm gonna say to you when we turn the camera off. Okay, all right. She's gonna kill me, guys. All right, darling, could you please read the next story?
New census data may give Republicans the House.
Okay, this is an interesting story. It's something I hadn't heard about. I mean, it just came out yesterday, I guess. But so we've got the census data back, and I actually thought that it was going to show like Democrats gaining, because Democrats are like, oh, there's so many immigrants that are coming into like various places that that we're going to get more representation. But the problem, I think, now, so here's the thing. Well, I'll read some of the stuff in this story, but so this is from the New York Times. If you count up all these negative ones and plus ones and plus two for Texas and all this kind of stuff, and you think about which of these states is Republican state and which of these states is a Democrat state, what it looks like is Republicans are going to gain three congressmen and gain 3 electoral votes, and Democrats are going to lose 3 congressmen and lose 3 electoral votes based on the makeup of the states. But the problem with that is that congressmen aren't nominated by the entire state. Congressmen are nominated by districts. So it's possible that even in a Republican state, you'll get a Democrat district, and so they'll gain a congressman, but they'll gain like a Democrat congressman. And the same could be true in a Democrat state. So it all depends on how they draw their district lines. Now, obviously, Republicans are going to try to draw districting lines in such a way that it benefits Republicans and gives them more, representatives. But there is a concern that if you make the margins too slim, so like let's say you make a particular district 51% Republican and 49% Democrat, that in a couple of years, if the demographics shift, that'll become a Democrat district. So they're saying that, well, maybe they won't. Maybe they won't what they call gerrymander it quite as much as we think they will. But we'll have to see. But anyway, this is a great article here at the New York Times. I don't usually advocate for the New York Times, but it is a great article. Has a lot of data here because this isn't really a partisan issue, what the census showed. It just shows kind of what the demographic shifts are. And what's really fascinating about this is that, as you might have suspected, people are just leaving Democrat states like crazy. And where are they moving? Republican states. Shocker, I know. But the problem with that, I mean, there's a few exceptions like Oregon. There's a lot of people are moving to Oregon because Oregon, Oregon's like, I constantly talk about Oregon as like one of the most beautiful places in the world. And people just think Oregon, what is there, trees? Yeah, basically it's a big forest, but it's a stunningly beautiful place, and people just don't realize how amazing it is. And that's why it's so sad that it's run by Democrats. But anyway, you can see here the different state breakdowns. This is Florida here. This is Texas over time gaining delegates and stuff, or gaining congressmen and whatnot. And here's California, and California has finally started to lose population. This is the first time.
I'm surprised because I remember when a census were here in California, the mayor himself was going around town and giving all of those forms to the people.
And here's what's really shocking, and this is something that I wanted to mention at the beginning here.
They're like, don't be afraid. We need you. We need to count you.
Because they're talking about immigrants, right? So here's the thing. Illegal immigrants were counted in the census. Donald Trump was trying to get them to not count illegal immigrants because why should you get more representatives in a state in which much of your state consists of Mexican citizens? That doesn't make any sense, right? They're not here illegally. So because you let a bunch of people sneak into your state illegally, they weren't provided citizenship by the U.S. government. Because they live in your state, you get more representation? That's completely insane. And yet, for whatever reason, the courts struck down Donald Trump's attempt to stop the census from counting illegal immigrants. Now, you can count illegal immigrants, but count them as illegal immigrants. Don't count them as just members of the population. That's ridiculous. Why don't we just count rocks as members of the population? They're not citizens either. Or horses. Oh, look, there's a horse there. We're going to count that as a citizen. I'm sure Democrats do those kind of dirty tricks all the time. But if we're counting citizens who actually vote and need representation, then I actually think, and if we were only counting citizens, I actually think we would have had even more representation in Congress, and the Democrats would have had fewer representatives.
You're talking about citizens or legal immigrants also?
Legal immigrants are citizens.
Do you have to count you count them as citizens?
Oh, you mean because there's a time when you start to immigrate and when your immigration is over. Well, I think that those people shouldn't get representation either. You should still count them in the census, but they should be distinguished from the citizens who get to vote.
I think legal immigrants have to have representation. Legal.
But you have to go through a process.
You have Social Security, you pay taxes, you have to have representation. The only difference between me and you, I cannot vote.
That's actually fair because you're paying a lot of taxes. And we are paying, by the way, a lot of taxes.
Like every check that I get, minus 35%, Chris.
No, but not just that. I mean, we just did our taxes and it's painful, folks. Let me tell you, I am in pain right now. I'm literally like wounded. Well, literally, figuratively. Not literally.
Your friend texted me something. I think that's because you...
Kurt?
Didn't respond.
All right. What is he write? Oh, is he watching?
I guess.
He says the Biden tax plan is stupidity. I'd an attempt to collapse. It's an attempt to collapse the economy. If you're gonna text me in the middle of the show, spell things correctly. All right, let's see here. He says he'll be sent to his room without milk of magnesia. That's my buddy Kurt. Now you know why he's my best friend, because he's hilarious, even if he presents me with some typos during my show. Yeah, so I do think that if they hadn't counted the illegal immigrants, there would be a lot more representation for Republicans and a lot less representation for Democrats in Washington. And by the way, okay, so there's one more thing that I would like to say about how unfair the census was. This was conducted primarily in April of 2020, right? That's when it was due for everybody to go ahead and fill out their census form. They had other stuff. They would go door to door and check out, how many people there were and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, most of the census was taken care of in April. Somebody writing you? Would you like to share with the class, darling?
Just about my job for tomorrow.
Okay. She's dealing
Important.
with yeah. But here's the other thing, right? So a lot of people moved. After April. Like between April and November when we voted for president, a ton of people shifted states. A ton of people moved because of COVID restrictions. People were basically sick and tired of the mess that Democrats were making in Los Angeles and San Francisco and San Diego. Well, not so much San Diego, but Portland, Washington State, Seattle, in New York City. I mean, so many people moved out of New York City. And so this idea that, there was all this movement from Democrat regions to Republican regions, that was true when they took the census, but it was even more true when we voted in November. Mm-hmm. And who knows what the election would have turned out like, even with the Democrat finagling of the election. Even with that, we still might have won had the census shift, been more accurate. It's really a shame that the census was taken in April of 2015 before a lot of the demographic shifts happened, before a lot of people moved. Now, Democrats are saying now that actually this demographic shift may be a good thing, even though Republican states are getting a lot of new representation. And we do get more electoral votes as well, which is why I'm talking about the election, the presidential election. But a lot of Democrats are saying, well, the people that are moving from Democrat states to Republican states are Democrats, so they're actually turning these red states blue. Let me just say this. This is totally false. Okay, for two reasons. One, yeah, you do get some Democrats moving from Democrat states, but you're getting a lot of conservatives moving from Democrat states to Republican areas. And part of the reason is because if you're a Democrat and you live in a Democrat state, even if you see it getting destroyed around you, a lot of Democrats are saying, no, this is a good thing. They're doing the right thing. This is good. This is right. Democrats are good. Because these Democrats, they aren't able to see that they're wrong, right? A lot of people, they get embedded with these ideas that they're right, and they really, really, really don't want to believe that they're wrong. If you've been arguing with your Republican friends for years, Democrats are right, Democrats are right, Democrats are right, and then your Democrats are in power in your city and are destroying your city, you go, Democrats are still right. Democrats are still right. A lot of people refuse to see the truth because they so want to be right. And so a lot of these people will stay in the city despite the fact that it's a hellhole because they want to be right. They want to believe that they're right. And it's the Republicans going, screw this. We are done with it. And they're leaving, right? We're planning on leaving. We've been trying to figure it out for a while now. But certainly there are some Democrats that have had it as well, but think about it like this. The Democrats who've had it, the Democrats are like, let's go to a better place. They're the ones who are probably a little bit more open to recognizing that maybe Democrats aren't right all the time. And they're going to be in a state that is mostly Republican. And even if they live in a Democrat region, they're going to have to face the reality that not all Republicans are these evil right-wing, white supremacists or whatever they think. because they're going to be moving out of like Manhattan where everybody thinks that, and they're going to be moving to somewhere like, Austin, Texas, and they're going to run into people who are really great people, and they're going to be interacting with them, and it's sort of like, just as regular folks. And then eventually they're going to find out, oh, you're a Republican? That's weird. I thought all Republicans were evil. And they're just going to have to face the reality that Republicans aren't all just these evil white supremacists. And that will change people. So this idea that, it's just Democrats moving to red states and turning them blue, this is absolute baloney from Democrats. The truth is, bad policies in the big cities by Democrats are pushing people both out of the city and out of the Democrat Party. That's what's happening in America right now. How will this affect 2022? Here's what I think. I have thought for a long time already that 2022 is going to be a massacre of the Democrats. The Democrats are just going to get killed in terms of the votes, in terms of how people are going to vote, because even those Democrats who were excited to try to get Trump out of office, they no longer have Trump to hate anymore. So the apathy that existed in 2020 for Joe Biden is going to be even more pronounced in 2022, because is Biden an exciting candidate? Certainly not. The only hope the Democrats have for 2022 is cheating on a massive scale. Do we think that the Democrats are capable of such a thing? Oh, I don't know. It's an interesting question. What do you think, darling? Well, what's the deal? Why aren't you speaking? You do realize that this is an audio-visual medium.
I understand.
Sorry, man. Getting her to talk sometimes is like pulling teeth. I swear to God. All right.
That's true.
Okay, so
You don't like me talking.
I do like you talking. I just don't like you disagreeing with me about stupid things. Okay. I don't know. Look, 2022, I've always thought should be a landslide for Republicans. Now with this new data, I think that it's very, very likely that Republicans would win even without a landslide voting. I'm curious to see exactly how many seats we're going to pick up in Congress, in the House of Representatives. I think we're certainly going to win the Senate, but that's only if the election is fair. Who knows if the election is okay? So the reason you're not speaking is because you want to contradict me and say I don't think the election will be fair. That's your time. That's okay. You can say that. That's a totally reasonable thing.
I don't want to be beaten up after live stream.
Beaten up. You're gonna get me into trouble, dude.
See, it's starting.
I'm an abusive husband. Okay. Oh, don't throw it at the cat. You're gonna wake him up. Okay, so look, this gives me a lot more hope about 2022 and here's why. Because even if the Democrats decide to cheat in 2022, which I think they probably will, we have so much of a tsunami of Republican votes right now, including what's going on with the census data. We have so much of an opportunity to win here that I think it'll just be really hard for them to do what they want to do. That's my take on it. Anything?
We'll see.
Okay. All right. Darling, I think we have one story left.
Yeah.
Why do you look all digitally? What did I do?
FISA court.
Okay, FISA court.
FISA court says the FBI repeatedly violated rules.
Yeah, this is interesting. So I didn't actually have a chance to read this news article before we did the show. So this is actually going to be news. The cat's playing with a little bottle cap that I threw at Valeria. I didn't actually get the chance to read this before, so this is going to be fascinating to me as well. FISA court says FBI repeatedly violated rules meant to protect privacy. Let's have a look here. The FBI again repeatedly violated rules meant to protect privacy of Americans' privacy, according to the secretive federal court that made public its latest ruling slamming the Bureau's continued misconduct. And so the reason why this is critical, or the reason I wanted to read this story, is because I am very concerned that the FBI has become basically a weapon of Democrats. So they went after Trump illegally. They have arrested a bunch of these people from January 6th in an attempt to persecute conservatives. and scare us into saying, you can't get away with anything. We will destroy you. And at the same time, they're ignoring the crimes of Democrats. They're ignoring the crimes of Hunter Biden because he's the president's son. They're ignoring the crimes of Joe Biden. Joe Biden has conducted himself in a criminal way over the years, and he's never been looked at by the FBI. Or if he has, they've neglected to arrest him or to try him for his crimes. And in fact, if you watch a video that I produced a little while ago, I shouldn't say I produced it, I just posted it on my show. This is the CEO of Overstock.com. His name's Patrick Byrne. You got to watch this video, guys. This video is crazy. This guy's I think he's a millionaire, like hundreds of millions of dollars he has. I don't think he's quite a billionaire, but he's got hundreds of millions of dollars. He doesn't have any good reason. He's no longer the CEO of Overstock. He has no reason to express this story. Unless he's just trying to be famous or something weird like that. If he's legitimately insane, that's a problem. But I don't think he is. I think that this guy is totally legit, and you can watch the video and judge for yourself. But what this guy says in the video is he says that he was approached by the FBI to wear a wire and connect Hillary Clinton to a foreign ambassador, a foreign government, an official from a foreign government, and to bribe Hillary Clinton with millions of dollars. I think it was $5 million, something like that. He got Hillary on Clinton taking the bribe. So this is evidence of corruption of Hillary Clinton. So the FBI they got their evidence against Hillary Clinton. And then this guy said, okay, now what are you going to do with her? And they said, we're not going to do anything with her. You're going to forget that this ever happened. What's going to happen is that Hillary Clinton's going to become president. This is before 2016, by the way. Hillary Clinton is going to become president, and we're going to control her. Actually, what they said was Barack Obama is going to control her. But maybe it was Barack Obama, maybe it was the FBI themselves, who knows. But the idea was that Hillary Clinton was going to be president, the FBI was going to control her with this damaging audio that they had. They were able to basically control Hillary Clinton. She was going to be a puppet. And they were going to blackmail her using this stuff. So, is that what the FBI does now? Is that what the FBI does? I mean, do they even prosecute people anymore for crimes? Do they even arrest people? Or do they just investigate people, get dirt on them, and then control them? Is that what the Federal Bureau of Investigation is doing now? Is that their whole purpose? Are they just basically the deep state? Is that all they are now? I don't know, but it's very concerning, and you need to watch that Patrick Byrne video if you haven't. It's very compelling. Very, very concerning. But anyway, so now the FISA court is saying that the FBI is guilty of more stuff. So let's go and read about this. The declassified and partially redacted ruling on Monday by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, posted by the Subtract the Reactionary and reported on by the Washington Post, showed that between mid 2019 and early 2020, I'm surprised Washington Post even published this, the FBI continually dove through data and that contained Americans' emails and other communications as they searched for information without proper justification. Still, the court's presiding judge, James Boasberg, wrote in the filing that the violations occurred before the FBI improved its querying system. Oh, it happened before they've sorted themselves out now. They're perfectly fine now. And training program that the COVID-19 pandemic has limited the government's ability to monitor compliance. While the court is concerned about the apparent widespread violations, it lacks sufficient information at this time to assess the adequacy of FBI system changes and training, he said. Therefore, he wrote, the court is willing to again conclude that the FBI's procedures meet statutory and Fourth Amendment requirements. Give me a break. They go, okay, so the FBI is clearly violating the civil rights of Americans, but because we can't investigate them thoroughly because of COVID restrictions, we're just going to say that they're totally compliant. They're fine. Everything's fine. Yeah, we don't really have the resources to investigate them, so we'll just say they're fine. Yeah, that sounds totally legit, guys. Let's see here. It's at the least third time. Okay, who wrote this? Who am I going to call out here? I can't find it. I can't find who wrote this. Newsmax staff. Okay, Newsmax staff. You've got a very funny name. I'm going to call you out. This is crappy writing, okay? This is crappy writing. Sort yourselves out. It's at the least third time? What is that? Who doesn't catch that? That's one of the most egregious writing errors I've seen so far on this show. Okay. What they meant to write was, it's at least the third time that the FBI has been rebuked by the court for breaching the rules en masse in the last several years, the Post reported, and it's raising alarms. You know what? I should text Chris Ruddy specifically. Chris Ruddy owns Newsmax, and I happen to have his phone number. I should text him and be like, dude, fire your writer. No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I actually love Newsmax. Newsmax is great, but seriously, that's not cool. All right. We can continue playing compliance whack-a-mole, Julian Sanchez, a senior fellow at the public policy think tank Cato Institute, told the Post. But at this point, it's reasonable to ask whether this sort of large-scale collection on a general warrant model is inherently prone to these problems in a way that restricts robust and timely oversight. That's actually not just a great point, but very well stated, Julian Sanchez. He's probably a very intelligent person. All right. At issue is Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, passed in 2008, which sets limits on spying on U.S. soil in national security cases. In the latest disclosure, Boasberg wrote that in 2019 and 2020, the Justice Department's National Security Division reported numerous incidents to the court involving queries on Americans for criminal evidence without the FBI files first obtaining court permission. In one instance, he wrote that an FBI specialist conducting background investigations made 124 queries of raw Section 702 data on volunteers who had requested to participate in the FBI's Citizens Academy, on people who needed to enter the field office to perform repairs, and on people who reported that they were victims of a crime, according to the reactionary. In another example, he wrote the FBI made 40 queries in support of probes into healthcare fraud, international organized crime, violent gangs, and domestic terrorism. None was related to national security, Boasberg wrote, according to the Post. Now, I don't necessarily, even though it's, we do need to keep a close eye on what the FBI is doing and overreach and, violating the limits that are imposed on them. I think that the FBI should be given a little bit of slack when it comes to investigating like human traffickers and drug runners and stuff like that. Now, we of course don't want our civil rights violated, obviously, and that can bleed into problems with like ordinary citizens. But obviously my bigger problem with the FBI is their partisan nature. If you're going strictly after criminals and irrelevant of political party, they should be given a little bit more discretion. But when it comes to going after people for partisan reasons, like the January 6th protesters, that I think we need to keep a much closer eye on. And it's annoying to me that, we're focusing on the problems of the FBI overreach with criminals, and we're not focused on the problem with FBI overreach on good citizens who just happen to be Republicans. Kurt says that you're refusing to read his texts.
Don't care.
All right, let's see here.
I have a suggestion. Can you make an article slightly bigger? Like zoom in? No, not like... Yeah, that's good.
I'm actually going to change the setup.
Perfect.
I've been. Is that for you or for somebody who wrote something on the?
For all of us.
For all of us. But did you come up with that, or was it somebody in the comments?
Somebody who...
Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm actually going to create...
Because I wouldn't do it for myself.
Darling, can I say something? Thank you. I'm going to create a new, more professional thing, visual.
You didn't even hear what I said.
What'd you say?
I said he wouldn't do it for me.
I would not do it for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. But I just wanted to know, because I wanted to make clear to the public that I am actually going to try to create a more professional sort of structure to the show. I think this is kind of raw. This is why I always say we're very unprofessional, but I'll sort it out. Okay, let's see here. Controversy over Section 702 intensified after the 2013 revelations of government surveillance first brought to light by former national security agent contractor Edward Snowden. I do think Snowden is kind of a creepy loser. He's a Democrat. He's kind of a creepy loser, but I do think that he should be exonerated from that.
I know him.
You don't?
I know who that is.
Oh, yeah. Do you think he should be exonerated or not?
Well, he escaped, right?
Mm-hmm.
To Russia.
Mm-hmm. But I think he's being persecuted for releasing classified information that probably was definitely stuff that was of public interest that should have been declassified and we should have known about. So I don't know. I think that he did a good thing, despite the fact that he's a sneaky little weasel. Let's see here. Under Section 702, the government obtains emails and other communications from tech companies for foreign intelligence purposes and to aid government investigations into foreign terrorism, espionage, and nuclear proliferation, the Post noted. An unnamed senior FBI official told the Post only 3.6% of the targets collected under Section 702 are currently made available to the FBI. Though Boasberg blasted the FBI, he was lenient to former FBI attorney Kevin Kleinsmith when, in January 29th, he sentenced him to only probation for altering the CIA email and lying about it to the FBI coworkers in order to get a FISA renewal on a former Trump campaign advisor. Yes, this is the guy. I knew I recognized that name, Boasberg. I've been actually producing a video for my other show about this guy and about the whole situation in Washington, D.C., where essentially Democrats control certain judges. And Boasberg, it appears, is one of them. And he gave Kevin Kleinsmith this, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I don't remember exactly. So certain judges are definitely controlled by Democrats, clearly. Others of them are just a little bit weird. It's possible that Boasberg let Kleinsmith off because he recognized that Kleinsmith wasn't, in fact, really guilty of anything. He was really just a scapegoat. And the people who were actually guilty weren't being prosecuted. So he might have let Kleinsberg off just because he recognized that he was a scapegoat and not because Boasberg is a Democrat operative. It's hard to know. It's hard to know these things, whether Boasberg was being controlled and told to do this or whether he just recognized that Kleinsmith was a scapegoat. Because Kleinsmith is a scapegoat, folks. The people who are really guilty of serious violations of our democracy, violating our democracy, doing all kinds of criminal, horrible stuff, it's not Kleinsmith, all right? It's the people that told Kleinsmith what to do. It's, the names of most of the people in the FBI that were, acting criminally. But I think there's a lot of people in the FBI that we don't even know their names, that have been acting criminally, that went after Trump, that are in the deep state, that still haven't been exposed. I think these people need to be investigated. I don't know how we do that. What I would have liked to have seen is for Trump's Justice Department to have created some kind of new organization to oversee the FBI. That would have been great. What they got was flippin', what's that guy's name? Who's the guy that did the investigation into the FBI? You don't know. John Durham. So John Durham was supposed to go in and do all of that research. But here's a big question for you guys. Where the hell is John Durham? Where the hell is the John Durham report? Where is the Durham report? Where is the Durham report? Where the hell is that report? What is even going on with that?
I don't know.
They've investigated nothing. They found nothing. We've heard nothing. Nobody's been arrested. Nobody's even been nothing. There's been nothing. We've got no report. We've got nothing. This is much worse than Watergate. This is the worst scandal ever in American politics. They spied on Donald Trump's political campaign before he became president, and then after he was president as well, from what I understand. The FBI was spying on a U.S. president and his presidential campaign in order to help the opposition, in order to help the Democrats. This is completely undermining democracy. The FBI was undermining democracy, and who is being held to account for it? No one. John Durham has just disappeared. Unbelievable. Okay, news over. Valeria, would you like to read the comments and the questions?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
1 second, please.
Frank James wrote, he wanted to get away from the questions. I don't know what the hell that means. Okay, moving on.
First one from Rightful King of the Polls. The Kavanaugh thing is even weirder than you say. She uses her psychiatrist's notes as evidence, but the note said there were 3 attackers.
Oh, is that true? Okay.
Apparently.
And I think that originally she said she didn't remember who did it or something like that. And then later on she said, oh, yeah, no, it was Brett Kavanaugh for sure.
One more super chat from same rightful king of the polls.
King of the polls.
Harris raises bail for Antifa, but these get none. Like
January 6th protesters, yeah. Yeah, Kamala Harris was like, hey, we need to raise money for bail for these poor protesters who are burning things down. And then these guys who walk through the Capitol casually, they're denied bail for walking casually. Right.
Paige and Daniel, my daughter was bragging about rattling me out to the FBI for just being there.
Your daughter? They say his daughter?
I guess.
Who is this?
Paige and Daniel.
Patriot Daniel. Good Lord. I think your daughter needs a timeout. He's to sit in the corner for a little while. I mean, that's completely crazy. He's one of our favorites, Patriot Daniel. Good freaking. I mean, geez, these people are brainwashed. I'm so sorry to hear that. Your daughter is a little bit nuts. That's how powerful the Democrat Party's propaganda is. You know, what I love, by the way, is not Kamala Harris. That would have been nice. Tulsi Gabbard posted a video the other day that was like, mainstream media is propaganda, is Democrat propaganda. I couldn't believe that she said that. That was beautiful. I posted that to Twitter. I was so happy to hear her say that. I mean, she's a Democrat. She's not a real Democrat. She's more of a...
Another super chat from Daniel is wearing the Biden suit today. That's how I feel about him.
What?
I don't know. Is wearing the Biden suit today? Question mark. That's how I feel about him.
Is wearing the Biden suit?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
I don't know. You can scroll up and...
Can I? Is it close? Let me look.
It's a green...
It's a green super chat. I don't think Oh, here we go. Is wearing the Biden suit today? Question mark. That's how I feel about him. Daniel, I don't understand that. I think there's a typo in there.
Okay, Andrew Beerward. My money is on the Asian Jew winning fight. Sorry, Semi Bionic Chris.
Is the Asian Jew winning the fight? Oh yeah, you're the Asian Jew, remember? Sorry, semi-bionic. Andrew Beerward pays attention, man. He knows all this stuff. Yeah, semi-bionic. It's true. I've got a bionic hip.
Is that all for today? Yeah.
Yeah, looks like it. Thanks for the super chats, guys. Let's see. Salty JD Coke says, are you not watching Maricopa County or listening to Bill Bailey in Antrim County? I wasn't watching Maricopa County, but I did produce a video about that audit. So I will update myself. I haven't looked into it today, but I need to produce that video before it's irrelevant. But I produced a video. I've written a video about that whole thing and how Rachel Maddow freaked the flip out. She freaked out about the whole audit. She was just like, this audit is going to show that there is corruption and you guys shouldn't believe it because Republicans are liars and they've got this guy doing the audit who's clearly a Trump supporter, and so that means that he's definitely going to lie about the audit and he's going to say that Democrats cheated when they didn't. So whatever he says, don't believe it. It's definitely nothing to see here. Don't look behind the curtain. Everything's good. It was totally fair. And I think that her, I'm titling the story, "The Lady Doth Protest Too Much." That's a line from Shakespeare. If you don't recognize it, from Hamlet. The lady doth protest too much, methinks. And the concept is that, which by the way, I looked into it because I wanted to make sure that I had this context right, or I had the meaning of that quote right. People perceive that quote to mean that somebody who is desperately insisting upon their innocence is actually hiding something, or somebody that's desperately insisting on something is lying. But actually in the original play, it didn't mean that at all, which is kind of funny, but that is how people perceive it. So I do use it for that. But yeah. So definitely when people protest too much, it often does mean that they are guilty. No, this is not true. So Rachel Maddow, it almost seems like she knows something the rest of us don't. And so her reaction to this Arizona audit is pretty telling. But yeah, actually, thanks for reminding me. I'm going to look into that as soon as I end the show here. Slayer says, in the 10 years I've lived in Texas, the last few years I've seen a massive increase in Democrats moving here. Yeah, there are definitely Democrats moving to Texas, especially Austin. So there are Democrats moving to Texas for sure. But I think a lot of the people moving to Texas and Florida are Republicans from Democrat states.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone we know has moved out of California, either to Texas or Florida. And it depends on the region of Texas that you're talking about, you know. Oh, we got a couple more super chats here. Daniel J. Corica writes, my daughter is 18 and doesn't live with me. She's the one wearing the Biden suit today, is what I was trying to say. Like the movie being John Malkovich. she's... So she's like, yeah, she's taking on the mantle of being Joe Biden. That's pretty funny. Rightful King of the Polls says, correction, Christine Blasey Ford, psychiatrist, said that there were 4 attackers. There's an article on legal insurrection and other by USA Today. I'm interested in knowing why your name is Rightful King of the Polls. I'm curious, like if he's on like Ancestries.com and he's determined, oh, actually, if Poland still had a kingdom today, I would be king. I'm curious. That might be true. But that's interesting about Christine Blasey Ford. Yeah, that whole situation was such a joke. And you know what's interesting about that? People don't remember this, but that was, in fact, the political circus that drew Kamala Harris first to public attention. That's because she was like really going after Kavanaugh there, and she was like really hardcore. And Democrats are like, yeah, who is this woman? We love her. And now she's vice president. It's unbelievable. All based on a lie. But good to know that she was, in politics because she was a qualified, intelligent woman. It's not because
not a prostitute.
Not a prostitute. Definitely not a prostitute. That is definitely not why she was successful in politics in San Francisco. Okay, Dark Crusher writes, you two are the highlight of my weekday. Also, Valeria is too adorable to stay mad at. Oh, no, she isn't. I'll stay mad at her for at least 20 minutes. Okay. Yeah, you're right. We you know what? At the end of the day, I think you need to be able to have a fight with the person that you care about the most, and get through it. I think it's important to fight occasionally, and
of course,
and reaffirm the reasons you like each other.
We have like kind of fight. I know that I might be wrong. I'm not saying that I'm not wrong, but sometimes you just want to have like little debate.
Yeah,
I want to say.
I don't think I've ever been wrong, but it could happen.
Even if you are wrong, Chris, you will accept this like a year after that happened.
By the way, I was complaining yesterday that I was fat. I was like, my God, I'm literally the fattest I've ever been in my life. I weighed myself. I was like, holy crap. I was a little bit depressed about it. I was like, man, I'm so fat. I need to like sort myself out. And Valeria goes, Chris, you know how I love animals? I was like, yeah. She goes, it's like having my own personal whale all the time. I was like, Valeria, that is not helpful. She's horrible woman. Okay, let's. Rightful King of the Polls says, I am thinking of doing my own YouTube show. I thought it would be funny if the libs had to call me Rightful King of the Polls. My old name is Frank Carr. I think I vaguely remember somebody named Frank Carr commenting on my show, on my stuff sometimes. Yeah, if you do a YouTube channel, I'll go ahead and have a look. Just let me know what it is. Herbie Hancock. I'm not reading that. Okay. So great, guys. I think we're good. I think we can end the show here. I have a phone call I'm late for, so I should probably hang up the show. You guys are awesome as usual. Thanks for watching. And
there is a super chat from yourself, Chris.
Chris K gave us $4.99, but he didn't write anything. Okay. Well, thanks, Chris K. All right, guys, we will see you guys tomorrow. Oh, Kurt's written something at the end here. I'm not reading that. Okay, guys, we will see you guys tomorrow. Valeria, do you want to say goodbye?
Good night.
Good night, everybody. And here is the outro. You guys are the best fans on YouTube, by the way. Love you guys. All right. The end. Toxic masculinity. That was great. And I really do think they're the best.